Tell me when we're on. Okay. Right, good morning everyone and welcome to the meeting of the Dorset Local Access Forum. In fact, to give us correct title, the Dorset Forum of the Christchurch and Poole Joint Local Access Forum. First item on the agenda, apologies. Do we have any apologies? Over to you, Gemma.
I've received apologies from Jim today.
Okay, thank you. If any of us have...
I know that Nikki... Is Nikki there? Nikki there? I know that she's not all that well, I think, so she said to me she might not be able to, so I think that's an apology.
Okay, so apologies for Nikki as well. If any of us have any declarable interests, if we state them at the opportune moment. Item 2, minutes of the last meeting, actions and matters arising. If I do a quick page turner, if you can indicate if you have an issue. Page 1, 2, 3, 4.
Are we just confirming accuracy, or are we picking up matters arising now?
Just confirming accuracy, yeah. And then we go to matters arising. Okay. So page 4, finally page 5, which leads us into matters arising. Paul, I think you've got something.
On towards the bottom of page 2, there was a discussion about the need to G up the right to way liaison office and their work. And it says here a presentation would be made over the coming months to go through the reporting system and Dorset Explorer functionality. Has that actually happened yet?
It has not happened yet. We've had an update to Dorset Explorer, and the update, some of the coding is been some of the how it works. So from the presentation I did at the last meeting, some of that functionality is not quite working correctly. So we're waiting to amend those errors with our GIS team and our IT team, and then we'll be able to be in a position to give the product to the parish, well, to present the product to the parish.
While we're on page 2, I've had a discussion with the Devon Local Access Forum, the DCAP as they are called, and I've suggested that we have this get-together meeting. At the moment, I've got to say it's been pushed into well into next year. I hope it does take place. There's an intention to do so, but it's finding the available time to slot the meeting in. But I think we'd be a lot stronger getting combined knowledge and wisdom from each other. So I really do look forward to that. Right. Item number 3. Well, first of all, I think we just formally adopt the minutes. So I'm happy.
I had another matter arising.
Please, Janet.
Yeah, I wonder if this is for BCP actually. Third, quarter of the way down, the golf course at Parley.
Yeah, we've got that in our presentation.
Oh, have you? Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, right, I'm formally happy to move from the chair that we ratify those minutes. Do I have a seconder? Janet, all those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? One abstention. Thank you. So we move on to item number 3, Dorset Council Green Space Management and Maintenance Report. Russell, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So again, the update on the ROIP is we are still using our ROIP. New ROIP is due to be a consultation in 2024, with it being to go live after the elections due to happen in May for the Dorset councillors and parish councils. So we are still, again, holding that in draft at the moment, and that's due after May 2024. Update on the restructure of our countryside teams. Again, that's looking to start to go live in April, perhaps May, depending on the consultation time frame. We had a meeting this week regarding it with all the key players, and it's taking shape, and there should be a seamless transition from what we do now into what we will be doing after April 2024. So yeah, very much.
Going back to the building plan,
Yes.
I think you were saying there'll be a draft in May. Is that right?
So I'm not entirely sure whether the draft is going to be released prior to the elections in May, or whether it would just be the draft will be presented prior. The draft will be presented in the early new year for consultation with the statutory body. That's a conversation I'm still having with those above me at the moment. So my preference would be that we get the consultation phase done in the early months, then we can get out afterwards. But we are governed by the timeline.
I sympathise with all your difficulties and what can be, but I think to put a not the very good plan for that is one of the last in the row, and really doesn't work completely detached from the process, really.
Mm-hmm.
And to understand, when there will be something we can get our teeth in, and to understand the range of issues that the plan will address. We've had a whole raft of issues that we've raised over the last 3 or 4 years. Our standard response has been, don't worry, for it will be sorted out when you get the right improvement plan again. You say, so there's a whole raft of issues that we just haven't been able to see results on because of this imbroglio, as it were. And I think we do need to understand what your timelines are.
Yeah. So of course the role that was involved with writing of the new ROIT, when that person left, that the funding for that allocated position was taken away, therefore it moved into another team and under my remit. So the other bits and pieces about doing this is why there's been a delay, but also it seems best to wait until after the elections that are taking place in May in order to release the document. But I am set forth in having that put in place by then as well, because I say we are using the old, we still have an active ROIT, which is our old one, but we are ready for the new.
But I totally don't understand what it actually has to do with the trouble. If you look at the non-applicable document that must be covered anyway away. But leaving that aside, the second that is quite clear that the lab is to be consulted at the first draft stage. Not that does not understand how you're prepared to see the political input.
And that still will happen. So there's the statutory bodies for which we need to send the draft report to, and you being and the lab being one of them. So we don't intend to amend that timeline at all, and we'd be grateful for the. So yeah, we don't intend to alter the statutory bodies. We just alter the timeline.
Well, in the last couple of minutes, you were supposed to be starting consultations last September.
Last September? Or...
Yes, but I read this as meaning, yes, I mean, have a draft ready for consultation by September, which clearly means last September. expecting in January, February, and published in March, right? And if that is no longer on the table, then you really do need to draft an equivalent form of words and give them to Gemma. You'll incorporate in the minutes.
So what I'll do is an action post this meeting. I will send Gemma wording relating to the timeline for.
I see we've got Nikki appeared, so welcome to the meeting, Nikki.
Hello, thank you. Sorry, I'm late. How can I be late when I'm at home? I'm terribly sorry.
No worries, you're here.
Yeah.
Just to sort of further my understanding on the Rowan. When Tara left, she assured us that it just needed some final tweaks. Bridget Betts then took over the Rowan after Christmas, and she said she would get it out before she was going on vacation in February. And then it just seems to have disappeared. What sort of level of preparedness is it in at the moment?
So the documents put together by Tara and Bridget are still there. Of course, we've taken it back in within our rights of waiting from the green space. We need to and want to amend it to make it suitable document for how we see the future of the rights of way. That's not to say there was what was done in the past was wrong or insufficient. It didn't go far enough in our ambition for the network, which is why we've taken the work that's being done by Gemma, Tara, and others, and we are just making it fit for our service for the next 10 years. So that's where the hiatus has been.
So we're going to see a substantially different document than the one we've been working with.
Perhaps not substantially different. So all the work and input that went into it will still be usable and correct. It's just how it's presented, worded, and across will be different. Make a document that's suitable for all, not just those of us here who have an interest in rights of way, but those people who actively use our rights of way, and just as importantly, those people who are not using our rights of way, who may not know about it. So it's trying to be an all-encompassing document, which is
more inclusive.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Can I just add to what Paul said, really? That I understand completely all you said, and that's fine. But it would be good if you can speed on with the consultation process, forget about the election. I understand that you want the final documents to be approved by a new council, but there's quite a lot of space in there, and if you can go ahead with the consultation during that period, it would be really good. And I think that would be the recommendation of the ROIC, that you proceed with that.
Yes, and as soon as the document is ready for consultation, it will go out. We're not going to hold off on doing any needed provisions. So, yeah, as soon as it's ready, it will go out.
So, I mean, I think it's really great that it is being made more inclusive, because when I looked at it before, I didn't think it was, and I think that if I was an ordinary member of the public having a look at it, I would basically put it down after the first paragraph. So I think if it is more basically readable, etc., it will be absolutely brilliant. But yeah, it's a shame that we sort of been effectively not really updated and not really knowing what's happening for months at a time, really. It feels from where I'm sitting like a black hole that the ROIP has sort of slipped into, and I'm sure it isn't a black hole at all. I'm sure it is on somebody's desk and being beavered away at. But a few updates would be really great.
Thank you, Nicky. Yes, yeah, and taking the comments forward from everybody in the room, I will get a message out to Gemma to pass on to all with the intended timeline updates and further information required.
Thank you.
Any further comments on items?
Again, the only update I've had from National England in this week for the England Coast Path is it's still sat with the Secretary of State in DEFRA. We're still in a 10-year hiatus, waiting for approval. We are due to meet them again because, of course, the plans that were put in place for the ECP section between Lyme Regis to Reefers Castle and then the section heading for Studland. There's lots more work needed doing there. It's very different from the initial concept. They we'll be having further meetings with those to discuss rollback and other issues. And yes, no other updates on this.
Paul?
Could you just clarify that last bit? I mean, to me, once the Secretary of State had approved National England before,
Yes.
that's it.
Yes.
And the chance is to simply get on and implement.
Yes. So the implementation, we in 2011, 13 and 16, we did surveys throughout the coastal corridor to see what was required in order to implement coastal access. And since then, there's been erosion, different changes to land ownership, land changes. We need to go back over all of that work again to see what we actually need to do to implement. So it's a bit of a costing exercise with us in Natural England, as well as actually physically getting out there and seeing where the path's going to go. But more or less, the path will still be on the alignment as discussed, which is sat on the Secretary of State's desk. It's just whether there's depth, bridges, surfacing, all these other bits and pieces implement as part of our implementation. That's what the further discussions are about. I'm hoping that the Secretary of State there for signing this off if possible, otherwise we'll be doing it again in a few years' time, going back through the coastal corridor.
So it is, I'm just getting this straight in my head, we are waiting for the Secretary of State to actually say, tick, put his signature on the Lyme to Rufus Castle bit.
Yep.
And also for the lower the Studland bit through the ranges.
Yes.
Right.
So the Lyme to Rufus Castle is the bit that National England are focusing on first.
Right.
But that's the one that went to the Secretary of State first. So that's the one that we should get over the line first.
Yeah.
I'm aware I said should 4 times in that sentence. But we're ever hopeful that it will go to that. And of course, again, I think I reported the last meeting with the King Charles emphasis on the coast path with the renaming and rebranding. I thought that might have given it another kick in the right direction, but it seems to have still not moved.
I mean, and English Nature are really keen for it to actually be the finished product all the way around the country next year.
Yeah.
So perhaps there'll be a bit of movement, but yeah, I mean, I understand it's completely, absolutely out of Dorset Council's hands. It's way above everybody here to move it forward.
As far as I was made aware some time ago, all of the legal challenges were met, and they went back for a couple of environmental mitigation required from that. Then the report was sent back to the Secretary of State. So we still await their decision.
On the Bloodworth ranges, then, the issue, as I understand it, is defining an alternative inland route.
Yes.
To use when the ranges are closed. And the last story we got from Tara was that there wasn't a proposed route for us to look at. Yes. But is that still the story? Or your words implied that there has been moved, but there was a defined route that you were thinking of implementing.
Certainly, I believe National England have resolved that issue. I will take that forward as a note post meeting and send you the National England documentation for that strategy.
I'm just wondering, Chairman, if it would be appropriate for us as the relevant local access forum to write to the Secretary of State and say, you know, Dorset was really lucky in that we had the very, very first stretch declared open in 2012. And it rather looks as if we're going to be the people who get the very last stretches implemented hopefully in 2024. But it might, given that we are in that position, that we did get the first bit, and we had a big legal hiccup with the line to Rufus Castle bit, and a slightly problematic bit with the ranges. That a letter to the Secretary of State wouldn't go amiss.
Yeah, particularly what you grew.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean,
Sorry, can I just ask for clarification? I'm still, from what's been said, not exactly sure where we are. Are we still at the point of deciding on the route, or are we at the next stage of ensuring that all of the decisions about how it's going to be implemented on the ground? So both things have been mentioned, so I'm not really sure at which stage we're at.
So all of Natural England's consultation is being done, so they know where their route is and wherever they want it to go. But currently, it hasn't been passed by the Secretary of State. Which
so it's still okay. So the route is still yet to be confirmed by the Secretary of State. And in the meantime, you are, in order to save time, looking at how you will do the final implementation and doing the final costings on the infrastructure.
That's correct, yes. So yeah, we have a working document with Natural England whereby we have all these assets and what's needed and what's required. So of course they're not just working on this stretch, they're working on lots of stretches. So they're budgeting for hopefully 2024 that it comes into the we shall see.
Yeah, and hopefully those stretches will be accessible.
Yeah, most follow the existing coast path. It's some of the areas, certainly where we have to have detours for inland routes. That's where we've got some of the issues. But also, the Coastal Access Bill allowed for additional funds to be presented to make the trail to a national trail standard, which some of it currently isn't because it's not coast path. So that's where the budgeting is going.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
That's right. I see your light on. Do you wish to come in? No. Okay.
No, not particularly. Thank you. I don't have anything to add on that, I'm afraid.
Okay. It's just I saw your background went live.
Oh, did it? Oh, okay. Sorry.
In the circumstances and the fact that we're all interested in positive impact, if you're going to write a new Secretary of State, I think it would be good to copy in members of Parliament, West Dorset, South, also the leader and defence of that. Holder, O'Brien. Setting out the importance of this. And just as an aside, I've just come out of a previous meeting talking about mental health in relation to Dorset post-COVID. Indeed, there are greater challenges arguably facing younger people than older people in terms of mental health. So if we can see positive outcomes, we should be driving at dropping in people of influence.
Thank you, Simon. Wise words. But you've got nothing further to add. No. Been moved to item 4 on the agenda. BCP Council Public Rights of Way officers. Philip.
Sorry, you missed one out.
Sorry, Paul.
Sorry, the
Update.
although it doesn't actually mention the reference here to open access. So that's an appropriate time to.
Yes. Do you have anything to add on that?
I don't have anything.
Nothing directly on that.
No.
No, we haven't
No.
heard of the.
Because there was this project that Chris and Jim ran on linking up open access Ireland with to give public access to. I recently stumbled across a 15-second guidance that said that one of the objectives of the Rights of the Way Improvement Plan is to create those links. So it's another of these issues where Tara said, "Don't worry, Paul, the Rights of Way Improvement Plan will sort it all out."
Yeah, I mean,
Do we actually have anything moving on that?
but it's certainly within the text of the ROIC to investigate that and move it forward, no doubt. But in terms of getting any contact from Natural England about what they are planning to do with open access, we have nothing concrete to update you on. But absolutely, open access and linking it to other rights of way is within the ROIC.
There's two threads to it. One is the long-awaited review of open access, which, as far as I know, is still just up in the cloud. But the other issue, this more specific issue of open access islands that the public can't get. And so Jim and Chris did an excellent package of work identifying a dozen or so of these sites where a very minor creation exercise of some form would let the public actually get there.
Yes.
And this was sent to the council, it must be 2 years ago now?
But that is.
After Lord. And we just haven't had anything back in terms of action to do it.
No, but there will be.
Yeah, it was the Dorset Ramblers AGM last weekend, and we had a guest speaker from Ramblers Central Office, and she'd been specifically invited to give an update to Dorset Ramblers about various national initiatives. And one of the things we particularly asked her to tell us about was any progress with the review of open access land. And she said that the government had indicated that they wanted the review to take place by 2030, but there's a huge but attached to that. Natural England are not able to either produce a timetable or how they're going to approach it, or indeed how they are actually going to approach it, what they're going to look at. And that's because Natural England are so occupied with finishing the England Coast Path. So, although the government has indicated that it will take place by 2030, Natural England do not appear to be able to report back on how they're going to do it.
Which to me is a good reason for forgetting about that review. But on the here and now of the open access island.
Right. With that, we'll move on to item number 4, which is the BCP Council Public Rights of Way report from Philip and Ellen.
All right, good morning. Yes, I'm indeed here, just loading up the PowerPoint. Good morning, everybody. All right, let's see now. Okay, so let's go through some of the latest things we've been looking at. So first thing, A lot of the items that we're covering here are just updates really on items that we have looked at before, so they should be familiar. We have the proposed diversion of the footpath over at Pally Golf. That has progressed now to the point where we feel confident that we can now move ahead with a diversion order. We've outlined that we're in agreement with what's been laid out on the ground, and we're just consulting with the Open Spaces Society and the Ramblers, who also appear to be happy with the alignment there. In addition to the path diversion, we've also secured an additional permissive path, which will allow people to walk closer to the river. I've yet to fully settle the details of that, but we are working on that at the moment. So this should be a good result overall. Capital programme. We detailed how we're going to improve the path between Old Wareham Road to Ringwood Road, footpath 127. We've now paid for that work, and it has been performed to a very high standard, and that was how it was before. We're overgrown. Now I have a lovely asphalted path. People have been observed using it, which is always a rewarding thing to know that when you have spent the money, that people immediately see that it's been improved and they start using it. So really good result there. There's another issue here, Iford Lane to Tuckton Bridge. This has been going on for quite some time, and highlights, I think, the sort of ongoing issues many authorities are facing, whereby they do have paths which end up being sort of eroded very, very slowly over time by the action of rivers. Not actually a public right of way, but it is, I think it's recorded as sort of highway verge, but it's prized by people in the locality. And of course, it does actually form a part of the Stour Valley Way, even though it's a very small part of it. It's a lovely sort of secluded walk. And the problem is we've had it shut off for quite some time because we had inspectors go down there and find that it had become far too narrow. What we found is that either by trying to move closer to the road, we would undermine the road, or trying to fight the river. That's something which potentially would be either expensive or futile. But either way, we've now commissioned a bit of survey work to be undertaken by our FCERM team to see as to whether or not we can do anything. Because, as I say, it is quite popular, and because it is part of a promoted route, we should try to save it if we can. Another little update, we're getting out there with the waymarkers updating. We've got quite a few sort of old waymarkers out and about, and plenty of paths which haven't been waymarked at all. So we've got some brand new, very snazzy looking waymarkers, and they're already going out at the moment on some of our priority routes. To finish wrapping the statement, I've got a few things here. Extinguishing order for path E53, Wayman's Avenue to Plums Park, a diversion order, and a DMMO application. Ellen, would you like to talk about these? You've largely been looking at these. I'm going to give you a chance to speak here.
Good morning, all.
Good morning.
Sorry, I put everything else down. Yeah, so the current officer's decision record that we're working on at the moment is the extinguishment order for the footpath, and that's over in Bournemouth, which unfortunately is currently going through someone's living room. So we have got that, and it's gone to the person, I believe, our chief officer, signed that off. The other ones we are looking at, as Pip said, are the diversion at Broadstone Recreation Ground. Many years ago, we were approached by the Ramblers to say that the alignments are again going to people's curtilage, and they don't accurately reflect what people walk on the ground. So in order to protect the routes people actually take, we are looking at a diversion order. And again, we've written that, and that's to be signed off. The same with the Crucial Mount Road one, which again is going through some. And then lastly, is the definitive map modification order application, which is the footpath between right of way 1, which is the Roman Road right on the border, and right of way 2 at Barrier Hill, Merley. At the moment, that's that. I'm going to go to the apologies panel on the 14th of December, and then hopefully after that we can again go get that signed off. So yeah, that's that bit, and then I think the next bit is about the River Avon. So environmental services were keen to understand what was happening with the footpaths into the River Avon as they received interest from county rulers. So we carried out a site visit with their landscape architect, the ecologist and their manager. And if you wouldn't mind, just go to the next slide quickly. We discussed the possibility of having a bridge or a broadwalk at the Black Cross on the E63/17 route. Whether there was any chance that that would be possible. However, obviously the cost, and it would require permission from the environmental agency in order to get the bridge or boardwalk. I believe Pip has spoken to the landowner about access along E61A, which is currently inaccessible due to electric fences. With keeping livestock, they have now prevented people accessing that way. The PIP has also been in contact with the Environment Agency regarding the sheep piling, which is obviously how the river's first bank, the sheep piling is gone. And since doing this presentation, I think they have responded to that letter to say they're not responsible for sheep piling and they haven't tried to prevent installation. However, sheep piling is now seen as poor practice. It's costly to maintain and it has adverse consequences on the environment. And I think they've said the responsibility sits with the owner who owns the land near to the bank of the river. However, they have no direct powers to enforce replacement. I think further, and I'm sure people will correct me if I'm wrong, that any work to replace piling would require a habitat regulations assessment and approval from Natural England. The Environment Agency are working with the landowner Southwest Water and Natural England to investigate, to review possible options given the risks posed to a number of assets. I think Natural England believe the breaches offer environmental advantages, such as creating wetland habitats and new stream channels. So I believe the next steps would be any possible future meetings with Southwest Water, Natural England and the landowner. The BCP Council will be invited to them, and separately we are going to speak to Natural England regarding sheep.
I'll add on a more corporate view. So we've had 6 months since the elections. Councillor Andy Hadley is our portfolio holder, and he's certainly been taking a very keen interest in rights of way. Some of you may know him, and you may have spotted him on BBC South a few weeks ago as a member of the, I think it's something like Bull Harbour Rights of Way group or something like that, looking at improving the rights of way from sort of Holland Heath across into BCP near the railway. So that was on BBC South for those of you who are in the sort of BBC South area. And certainly been a good bit of stability now, 6 months on. Yeah, and like I say, yeah, we're moving on with the rights of way improvement plan, which is that sort of backbone of how we're taking things forward. So that's just more a corporate sort of different element.
I was just going to say that. I think it was possibly raised in the last meeting about the BCP Reported webpage, about our reporting. I think we have spoken to IT, but they've said the whole of the BCP webpage is being looked at, but they have taken our suggestion on board for the Reported rights of way. But overall, it is all being looked at.
Well, what we are talking about here, as I understand the rights of way on the definitive map, and therefore the council, as far as authority, has a duty to protect and assert the rights of the public to use.
Yeah.
And it also had a duty, I believe, to maintain the service. The landowner is responsible for obstruction, but maintaining the service of the right of way is, as I understand it, irish authority responsibility. And the general flavour I was getting of your presentation did not give me huge confidence that that is actually going to happen.
Will let Pip comment on that? Where's he's?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, please. So I think probably the first thing I'd definitely like to make absolutely clear is that BCP Council, the Rights of Way team, we are completely committed to the idea of the retention of the paths on the definitive map and statement. That's for sure. And we'd absolutely like to restore access in whatever way we can, either by full restoration of the paths in their current form or via a diversion. So what we've said is there's two things which are immediately stopping us from getting in there and restoring access right now. And the first is regulatory, as Ellen has outlined, and the other, of course, is budgetary. Because what we've established is that no matter what we do, we'll likely be affected by ecologically designated land, which means that any proposed development will require consideration by bodies such as Natural England. The other thing is we've yet to commission a formal survey of the nature of the land in order to ensure that if we do install any structures to sort of raise the path out of the water, that they won't be marooned by further breaches, because what we've learned is that this probably isn't the end of the story with regards to the motion of the river. There will likely be further breaches further up. We've been unable to fund survey work this year, but I have penciled in capital for the next financial year for survey work to be undertaken. In the meantime, we will be referring to the statutory and regulatory agencies involved to identify what can be done to push back on the idea that Natural England's desire for a wetland ecology, somehow trumps the highway status of the Avon Valley Path. I don't believe it does at all. As you say, Paul, we absolutely have a legal duty to enforce and to protect these paths. And so we are going to be pursuing it with some vigour, but with obvious sort of realistic headwinds. The other detail is that the MP for Christchurch, Sir Christopher Chope, has expressed an interest and willingness to challenge any resistance from the regulatory bodies involved via Parliament, which would be a big help to us, really, as any kind of a legal challenge directly from BCP would probably be financially impossible. So I think there is plenty of possibility there, but yeah, it will be sort of slow going for the time being, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think, as you say, there's a tension here for both the landowner and indeed the council, in that they have a legal duty to protect right of way and land access, but they also have a legal duty to protect the environment. And whilst the last sort of 50, 100 years, we've been protecting our land and property by fixing rivers and indeed fixing footpaths, the reality is that actually rivers are not fixed, and there's an acknowledgement now that they should not be. And if we're paying a price in terms of flooding and damage through what has been done for the last 6,000 years, but mostly the last 100 years of rivers. So there's now a lot of, so the problem is balancing this tension. We need to be able to get between A and B, recreational work, and we need to allow floodplains. And obviously farmers have been up to now quite resistant to stopping farming on the floodplain, so the floodplains have been protected. But that is now changing because there's a lot more money available, both in green finance and in the slightly wilder approach to elms, to acknowledge that farmers can deliver environmental benefit through reconnection. And we've got several schemes in our area. We've got the Wareham Arc coming from Poole Harbour, which is doing this. And we've got one of the largest farmer groups right here, the Environmental Farming Group, who are actually getting together to look at green finance to deliver public good. And that includes creating wetlands. So somehow the farmers groups need to understand that there's another benefit they can deliver, which is around access. But unfortunately, this rigidity of only protecting a historic route is not necessarily the most successful way forward. So I think perhaps it's worth, just, I don't know whose responsibility it is to start discussion with the EFG group, who are big landowners. Or I think with Natural England are obviously aware of these tensions. They are helping deliver it. But and it's continuing to lobby on elms to get that money for access in there. And I don't know the answer to it, but just to alert you to the fact there is this group on the bottom of both rivers now. I think it could be useful in terms of delivering access, but not necessarily on the same route.
Chris.
I'm just pointing out that Simon Bitter has got a split power hand up.
Oh, yes, yes. Just one point. When you start looking at farming and environmental measures, you cannot look at things in isolation. And it would be helpful if everybody could consider a document that was published on the 15th of March 2023, which was a consultation document, which is called the Taxation of Environmental Land Management and Ecosystem Service Markets. Because the point is that all reasonable, sensible farmers will have at the back of their minds the whole question of inheritance tax. And the point is that agricultural property relief is given for two reasons. Firstly, in relation to the husbandry of animals. Secondly, in relation to the growing of crops. And environmental schemes don't necessarily actually provide any of those two facets, which is why the government launched the consultation document in the middle of March. But I'm not aware there was any commentary on this in the autumn statement yesterday. But do have regard to that, because most farmers certainly will have regard to that particular consultation.
Right, just so I've got the name right, the taxation of land management.
Yes, I'll just read it out again. It is the taxation of environmental land management and ecosystem service market. It was announced in the budget of 2023. It's where the government is exploring elements of the tax treatment of ecosystem service markets and environmental land management. Do you have any difficulties?
Thanks, Sam. And of course, I'm working on a project in Devon through the DEFRA Landscape Recovery, where a bid's being put in by a large organisation, which will produce wetlands and additional access. So there are many threads we've got to be aware of. Does that conclude? Oh no, Janet, do you want to come back in?
Yeah. It was circulated to all LAB members. We did have a representation from a member of the public about the Avon Valley problem. So we need to actually reply to that person and say that it was an item on our agenda, and to summarise what we've been told by BCP about the enormous difficulties that there are. It isn't just a case of sitting a man in with a shovel to build up the path. There are huge issues, and all of the tensions with the Environment Agency and Natural England and the landowner, and huge. It really is a massive problem. But can I just say thank you to Pip and the team, because with my Rammer's hat on, we have corresponded with you about this, and we were really concerned that there was talk originally about an extinguishment order, and from what Pip said today, it's quite clear that you're not thinking about that
No,
anymore.
I think one of our original site notices was a bit preemptive.
Yeah.
We have removed that site
Yes.
notice.
Yeah.
And there is on the presentation, there is a link to the current site notice that is out there informing people of the problem. And it is up to you. If you've got your waders to go out and have a good swim.
So either the chairman or I do need to reply to the person who wrote to us and say that. So,
Could you do me a succinct form of words that you'd be happy to see? And just
sure.
email it to me, and then we can agree something down. Okay.
Sorry, I wanted to ask another question, if that's all right.
Of course.
It was about the Parley golf course, and in the minutes of the last meeting, the minutes read, BCP officers would like to see the park moved to a seemingly spare strip of land that will be more in keeping with previous character, but discussions are proving difficult. Now, I think, sorry, again, wearing my rounders hat, we've been consulted about this, and that's the proposed diversion that we've got on the screen now. So that isn't what you were talking about last time, Pim?
No, I think it was on the table as to whether or not we would fully pursue an enforcement option. But I think there are pros and cons to a full enforcement action, and I think it was decided that on the balance of probabilities, it would have led to quite a difficult legal challenge. And I have a feeling the requested diversion almost certainly would have been settled probably via the Department for Transport other than BCP Council. So I think just by going through us, at least we've been able to have some input into it. And also we've been able to negotiate an additional permissive path. I think it was just sort of seen as the most pragmatic way of dealing with this, really.
Right, thank you.
On this permissive pathway, which is obviously welcome, but what plans do we have to display the OS to show it on their Explorer sheets?
That can be arranged. It can be arranged to be publicised and put on Dorset Explorer. That's for sure. It'll be signposted as well. So it won't exist in obscurity. We'll make sure to advertise of its existence.
There's many people, the gold standard they start with is the OS sheets. And to get one of the great problems we've always had with permitted funds is the OS is reluctant to show them on their map. So if you could find out whether they have any plans to show this one, that will be helpful.
Okay, I'll make a note to check it out with them.
To be clear, that won't go on OS mapping. It will just be an overlay on Dorset Explorer, won't it?
Yes, that's the plan for now, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in principle, if you can convince the OS that the permitted path is in perpetuity, it can be shown on the printed sheet that they may go into the shop and buy. That, as I say, in a sense, is the gold standard. But historically, the OS have always been reluctant to go down that road, understand?
That was my understanding.
Because I just used to sort of test case, as it were, to find out what the process is.
Right. If everybody's happy, I'll go on to item 5 rather than drop for the break. I'm particularly looking to see if you're happy to keep going. Okay, so if we have item 5, which is the legal record team definitive map and statement. Vanessa, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Hello again.
Hello. I'll just share my screen. It's not a long presentation, so it should fit in okay. So yeah, just a brief presentation. I'll go through the latest DMMO and PPO figures as usual, but I've also been asked to provide an update on the cut-off date for recording historic rights of way on the definitive map. So the latest update we had was released on the 25th of October by DEFRA's Rights of Way Reform team. They released a statement on the implementation of the Rights of Way Reform programme. As you will recall, they announced in March that the Secretary of State's decision to commence and extend the cut-off date, and they confirmed that the cut-off date provisions in the Countryside and Rights of Way Act would be commenced and come into force on the 25th of October. So on the 26th of October, a statutory instrument to formally extend the cut-off date to the 1st of January 2031 was laid in Parliament, and that automatically became law on the 17th of November. The commencement of sections 53 to 56 of the Crow Act includes the cut-off date and also the regulation making powers, enabling them to lay the extension regulations and to specify the exceptions to extinguishment. They're not yet ready to lay the regulations setting out what those exceptions will be, so we have no further information on that. However, they have said that the Secretary of State is committed to exceptions being introduced, and they will be working to complete them as soon as they can. In particular, the Secretary of State is committed to ensuring that all valid applications made before the cut-off date can continue to be determined after it, which is a huge relief to us because we, as you know, we have many outstanding applications, but it was never entirely clear whether or not they needed to be determined before the cut-off date. So that's quite helpful information. And the other key exceptions will cover unrecorded rights of way in urban areas and those routes in the list of streets or the National Streets Gazetteer. And they will be drafting provisions for further consideration covering unrecorded and under-recorded widths of routes. The Secretary of State has decided against including a general exception covering unrecorded routes in frequent use up to the cut-off date, which they've said should instead be saved by making an application in the usual way, which is what we were expecting them to say. And they've also said that the Secretary of State remains committed to implementing the remaining reforms, and DEFRA will update us on the implementation of the right to apply and the DMMO regulations as soon as they are able to do so. So as I said, that statement came out on the 25th of October, and we're just waiting for further updates as and when they become available. So looking next at DMMOs, we currently have 239 cases not started. The rate of applications being received has slowed down again, so that's helpful. We have 46 cases in progress. This includes 6 cases currently with the Planning Inspectorate, and this hasn't changed since the last update. And it also includes 24 cases which are in the queue waiting to be submitted to PINS. PINS cases update. There are no inquiries or hearings currently scheduled. Moving on to PPOs, we have 5 cases not started and 35 cases in progress, which includes 13 town and country planning applications and 8 orders which have been made and we're awaiting the works to be completed before we can confirm them. There are 2 cases currently with the Planning Inspectorate. Footpath 16 Malcolm Horsey and Footpath 26 Chesilbourne. This was submitted in September 2021 and will be determined by written representations, and that is currently in process. And the other one is Footpath 51 Dorchester and Footpath 6 Winterbourne Moncton, which was submitted in January this year. we're awaiting a start date and confirmation on whether it will be determined by written representations, hearing or public inquiries. And there are no other EPOs awaiting submission to PINs. And that's the update. Just as an aside, we are losing a member of the team at the end of this year. She's moving on to work in the traffic team. So she's staying within the council, but moving on. And at the moment, we don't know whether or not we will be able to replace her. So clearly there are only 7 of us in the team. So when you lose one, it makes a huge difference. So this is likely to have an impact on our progress. And that's it. So any questions?
Right, thank you very much indeed for that very informative presentation, Vanessa. Do we have any questions?
Good morning, Vanessa.
Hello.
Some years ago, we had a VHS representative by the name of Carol Schulman, who you might recognise. And I can remember her saying in the context of the cut-off date that they had a whole pile of applications still to go in. Have you actually seen a significant number of them, or do you think are they still hanging over you?
Well, we've had a great number of applications from the VHS. It's the vast majority of our outstanding list. As you know, Carol Shootman stopped being quite so active in the rights of way world some time ago. But I don't know if any of the applications to which she was referring are within those that we have received or not. I know she did do a handover to Sarah Greenwood, who is now our VHS sort of local rep. So presumably Sarah is aware and will be working on those cases if she has them, but they may all have gone over to Sarah Bucks, who's been the main VHS person working on the applications and submitting those to us. So I'm not really sure, to be honest. I suspect they are included within the ones that we have already received.
If I could help here and declare my interest, I'm the Access Field Officer for the British Horse Society South West, and I know that the applications that Carol would have been referring to in the main would have been the ones that Sarah Bucks has been working on and is continuing to work on. There will be additional ones coming forward. I wouldn't want to put a figure on them, but I think we can say that the vast majority are probably in. But Sarah is working on ones at present, and evidence continues to come to light. So we'll be making submissions into the future. Thank you. Right, well, I think we've dealt with that item. So thank you very much for your excellent presentation, Vanessa.
Thank you.
The committee's still happy. I'll continue on to item number 6, which is the Maiden Newton to Bridport shared use route.
Thank you. So yeah, we're still working on this route, the old railway line between Maiden Newton to terminating in West Bay. So far, for the update for it, we of the 11-mile route, we have approximately 5 miles completed. Much of this, nearly 3 miles of that was in the Bridport area. And so, yeah, we've still got 6 or more miles left to go. We are I'm working with a colleague, Kevin Humphreys. So Kevin's taking on what would be the western end of M90, so that we can fill in the gaps. Because the problem is, although we have 5 miles completed of the route, they are interspersed. So we've got in the West Bay area, say 2.5 miles, and we've got a break, and we've got another half a mile, and we've got a break. So ideally, we want to get the whole route done in one hit, but of course, we're working with landowners and funding and other streams. We are doing the bits and pieces we can as they come on board. So yeah, the route is, those who don't know, just follows an old railway line that was made redundant in the 80s, and perhaps earlier than that, actually, sort of 60s it was, and then sold off piecemeal to different landowners. We've either been working with other interested parties to buy back parts of the route, or work with landowners in order to keep the route as far as possible on the old railway line, but also requires some work. A lot of the stone's been grubbed out, a lot of the farming practices have changed. So we are there. So let's say Kevin is now working on a stretch which we aim to link Bradpole to Palmerstock Common, which is a huge stretch that will get done, and that would give us then a continuous area of nearly 7 miles. That would give us about 5 miles of continuous routes. People from the Bridport West Bay area will be able to cycle out to Palmerstock Common and head back. So Kevin's working on that stretch at the moment. So early days on that one at the moment. We are still, we have to go through all the process whereby we have to apply for planning, different pieces. We need to liaise with the landowners to make sure the route is suitable. Because we're very aware that there's no definitive. We're intending to put definitive rights in as much of the route as we can, but also we are aware that these are owned by various people now, and therefore we can't, although they're on board with our project, we don't want to impact their business, their farming, their livelihood in any way. But actually what we're trying to do is work with the landowners in order to so that we all benefit, so the public benefits, the landowner, so we all have a vested interest in making the project work. So Kevin's working from the good work he's already done in the West Bay Bridport area to get to Palmerstock Common, and I'm working from Palmerstock Common to get the route back to Maiden Newton. Again, so working with other landowners. There's also some work to do within Palmerstock Common. There's a lot of main interests. The main obviously I've got my interest on again is drainage, grubbed out stone, different landowners, different new areas of land management. So all being overcome, hopefully we're driving it forward, and then of course I'm ignoring one of the biggest impacts, one of the biggest problems we have, which is funding. So of course we can get all the permissions we can, and we can get all the planning in place, we can get everything in place. So we are looking for different access. Touch on a great point about mental health, public mental health. This really fits perfectly within that. It's these routes where people can walk, cycle, run, and just go out and be just linked communities as well. So
and equestrian use.
And equestrian use.
So you record it as a public right of way.
That is our full intention, is to have public right of way. So that we have we have this multi-use route. So the specifications we're putting down for the path are such that they are wide enough for horses and bikes, and everyone's pass and repass, and just get more people out into the country. I mean, Graham's working on a similar route up in his area. And it's all about, say, safe routes to school as well, bits and pieces. So we've got these little communities, but also areas of these communities can then use for school. So schools can go out into a safe, well-maintained, well-surfaced area that they can use for their curriculum. But also, I've got 2 young children myself, and they are very aware of mental health and well-being, and it just fits into the whole package we're trying to do. So I don't need to sell the idea to the people in the group, because we're all aware of how beneficial these routes are. But so we are getting there. So some of the route, of course, we want to right away. Some of the routes is tarmac, some might be concrete. The sealed surface isn't always the best that we want for the users, but has to be in place for the landowners. For instance, heavy agricultural vehicles will break up some of the surfaces we would use on the trail. So where we can, we use the best surface for the area, and the best surface often is the one that suits the job. Out in the Palmerstock Common area, Toller to Palmerstock Common, we've used a surface that is unsealed but bound on the top, so you can use the specification always says you need to be able to go down a wheelchair, a child with stabilizers, so we don't create these wonderful routes that actually then limit people and are the audience that we want to go down. But yeah, that's where we are with that. So we are not quite halfway, but pushing forwards to get the other half done. It's fragmented, which is just the nature of trying to build back a railway that's been out of use for years. So yeah, work with another colleague, and hopefully the next couple of years we'll see some further strides in and get those communities linked, and also get people happy moving between all the villages, towns, and everywhere else along the route. So,
That's excellent news. I've walked several sections of the route, and one of the sections was around Polycorum, where you had to take the old railway bridge away and come down a ramp and go up the other side. Has that been done there?
So that section actually featured in Dorset magazine this week as one of their walks, which was the walk from Powerstock Common to Wildlife Trust and then back through Common. But no, the bridge there itself is owned by National Highways, and there was one of the plans put forward originally by National Highways is to remove some of their assets because the sidewalls are failing, causing
Yes.
to flat. There's an extortionate amount of money to repair. So one of their plans was to remove the bridge, but they had issues with the consultation. So they had various parties brought forward. So they sort of put a pin in that moment. So they have made a decision that I've been made aware of anyway, that bridge is staying or going. But we do have a ramp there now, which is put in by the landowner. So you can go around. The problem we have with that is it brings you on the wrong side of the flood. So the bridge there floods, which is a lot of the highways improvement work wants to be done there in order to stop the area flooding, to raise up when the bridge came out, the road can be raised. They're now working with our colleagues in our own highways team in order to put measures in to reduce the flooding. Because yes, it brings you into a route before Powerstock Common car park where you then can't get through.
I know.
So there's these little pockets of issues that come along, but
engineering challenges.
Yeah. So there is, thankfully, by the kind generosity of the landowner, there was a ramp put in so people can get down, don't have to scramble.
Okay.
The problem is by no means sorted, but there is most of the year people still have to. Yeah.
I'm delighted you're going to keep an unsealed surface, because all too often you get these routes that are tarmacadams. I know they're term sealed surface, but they're tarmac essentially. And you've taken the urban into the countryside, shall we say. And if you can keep it an unbound surface, 10 mil down to dusk or 5 mil down to dusk, you just retain the natural feel to it.
Yeah, of course.
Simon.
That certainly resonates with me. Having lived in Loaders for 8 years, I've got a good working knowledge of the railway line. I think the work that's been done between Powerstock and Holland is brilliant. I'll be interested to know where you think the next incremental increase of the available distance will come. I'm aware that south of Loaders, that is challenging, i.e. because of growth of trees, etc. To the west of Bridport End Railway Bridge, as I call it, close to mountains. That is challenging. But between Loaders itself, the high acres railway station at Powerstock, is that feasible to bring that into a standard similar to Powerstock Common to Collar?
It is
in a reasonable time scale.
In a reasonable, yes. So again, those areas we're in negotiation with. Again, where we want it, we do want to improve it, but we all do. We don't negatively impact anyone. So we have a route. We have from Loaders heading back towards that kind of stuff. We have an identified route that we want to follow. We're working with to the landowners, the land managers, and also working with the methodology whereby it can be achieved. You're absolutely right. Between Bradpole to Loaders, it's inherently wet in that area as well. So we've got a proposal for a couple of different options there about how we can use the metal highway in order to bring it round to get over some of these issues. Of course, we've got our core ambition to keep it as far as possible on the old railway line.
Absolutely. And I just want to ask you a question there, because using the North Dorset Trailway as regularly as I do, are you aware that North Dorset has a North Dorset Trailway and West Dorset doesn't have a West Dorset Trailway? And the whole idea of marketing and developing proposals along the railway line that closed in May 1975, to give it identity.
Yeah, so it's a very good point. This one gets called a number of different things, actually. So yeah, the same.
It occurs to me that if it was called the West Dorset Trailway, when you're talking to the parish council, whether Loaders, Powerstock, or in Lake Newton, indeed to the MP, as you should be, to West Dorset MP, it gives it an identity.
Yeah, it does, and the brand is very important as well, because then we're looking acutely at that across the county to see how we can link all of this together. So no, you're absolutely correct. And
West Dorset Trailway.
Yeah. So that's currently the update I have on that. Of course, working with one of the partners I forgot to say that we were working with there is our colleagues with the National Environment Team, also Wildlife Trust, and other related bodies to nature conservation and interest, so that we've got to make sure that we are balancing the needs of people with the needs of nature, which we made a good point earlier on about the wetland areas. So we're making sure that we are, acutely aware of our responsibilities to the wild environment as well as our in the countryside.
A lot of money about to be spent on the Hook and the Upper Broom or the rivers then, the projects.
Yes. Yeah.
The other thing is, while we're on Maiden Newton Run, which was assured to be multi-use when its inception, is that open yet?
Only under permissive rights at the moment.
Right. That's multi-use.
As multi-use permissively at the moment, yes. There is still work being done behind the scenes to get that adopted. Well, as adopted as a right away.
That's excellent news. Fantastic. Right. Paul.
I can remember when Tara was talking to us about this project a few years back. She was having difficulties with one or two landowners who were primarily worried about gangs of lads on mountain bikes doing wheelies and so on. And so they were rather reluctant to play ball with the project as a matter of general principle. And we moved on a bit since then. Or are there cases where getting landowner agreement is still a real issue?
Yes, I think we have certainly moved on a little bit there. And what helps with us moving on is implementing other sections of the path, which shows the precedent that actually the fears and the problems that are feared by landowners are action, so that we can use evidence based on what we have already built. But of course, there are some areas that have different problems to others, and therefore one of the issues that was raised in other areas in other trails was like motorbikes and vehicular access and social behaviour coming from that way. So then what we did is we work with the landowners to put in barriers which aren't obtrusive to the people we want on there, but do stop the ones we don't, which actually is, in principle, sounds easy, but it's actually very difficult to allow a wheelchair and a bicycle, but deter a motorbike or a vehicle. So it is working, and but yeah, most of the perceived problems from landowners are generally we are able to evidence that they don't exist, and help bring them on board.
For me, it's pleasing to hear that this is progressing, because when I worked here at Dorset with Kevin and the same team, I worked on elements of that railway, so it's brilliant to hear it's still going in the right direction. So yeah.
Yeah, so Kevin and I are about halfway there.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So,
As the local member for Marshall Ward, including Chiddock, as you're here, can I ask you about developments in Chiddock, improvements on Chiddock football?
You can.
With particular reference to equestrian.
So yes, so we were approached by two members from Chiddock, regarding access to Bridport. The only way they could access Chiddock to Bridport was via the A35, which if you've driven that section, you'll know that is legal. But they came to us with a proposal in order to help. One of the ambitions that we had was to link Bridport to Chiddock by means of a bridleway. So now we have done all the liaison and we've started implementing a brand new bridleway, which is now currently with our legal team. We've made representation to the VHS and others. And yeah, a couple of little bits have come back from that, but we've now put in some gates. And also then we'll soon be putting in some fencing to segregate the from the farming lot from the generally sheep. Yeah, so then we're going to be doing servicing work in the wet areas, but actually, yeah, we are nearly over the hurdle whereby we have the route, we need to get the first elements of this underway, and then we need to couple of little things. I say little things to do, but put the ramp in to make sure the also one of the key elements of the neighbourhood was that there's disability who actually currently has got an electric wheelchair which he goes up the A35. So the route, one of the key ambitions of the route is to go up this sidewalk. So we need to make sure that we, under the DDA, which we do anyway for our route, but in the correct slope to allow up onto, but also sort of servicing it, get them up. The next part of that is we are working with National Highways, which they are keen to assist us in this. They are also going to give us some money in order to keep that traffic, horses, bikes, chairs, people off of their network. So they're going to offer, hopefully, a meeting with them, then link the UCR network, and then bring it back down into Symonsbury and on Bridport. So part one of that was to get people from Chiddock up to the top of the hill. They can cross over the A35 and go down another bridle, but we want people on that side of the road. So we're going to work with other landowners there. The UCR is a great route, but also there are straighter, better aligned routes we want to take as well. So, which again, this is another route which we're coming into fruition, and it's for the area is exciting. But actually, the group behind it is actually called Eventually want to get to Lyme Regis and report that, and with their ambitions. But we're happy to support wherever we can, and we'll keep us.
This is a superb route that's going in. I know the landowner has got a concern about a few minor issues. Firstly, there's a electric stay at the eastern end. I know he doesn't want to lose more farming land than he has to. Is there a way to negotiate around the outside or underneath the stay or move the stay possibly?
So I've been working with the National Grid, who own that infrastructure. I've asked them to cost up moving that pylon. I envisage the cost of that will be grossly more than I just think the cost will be astronomical for that. But I have gone down that avenue so that I can come back to landowners and that we've looked at all the options that are available. Of course, we can't put a bridleway underneath that H-frame pylon because of I don't imagine a horse or a rider wants to walk under an H-frame with the stays coming back down through, but also we don't have the full 3 meters across the width that we need there, so we need to go back out in the field. I was down there yesterday, and I was actually citing out another proposal which would bring the bridleway down onto the D road before we reach the pylons, to see if that's a viable option, so we can bring it down and then we can go around back in the other way. So there's a couple of irons in the fire on that one, mainly because they've been so generous to us with their land. It's like we would would it be wrong of us not to explore every option to make sure that we can facilitate learning from that?
I've sent an email of thanks on behalf of the British Horse Society, and I think really we could do the same from the lab, because to get landowners to make such a generous donation, and it's going to be recorded as a public right of way rather than just permissive. It just links the dots. It creates a very, very safe route, gives us extra connectivity. I certainly wouldn't want to put a motorised wheelchair going through Chile. You know, I drive that way quite regularly. I know the horrors of that road, but I've also been contacted by a member of the parish council from the next village along at Morecambe Lake, who wants to have a safe crossing point in that village, and that's going to be a little bit problematic. But I don't know if there's anything that can be achieved there.
Best if you could send me the specifics relating to that one, we can look into it.
Yeah.
So just offhand, I wouldn't.
I've looked at it, and there are two potential places, but neither are entirely satisfactory.
Fair enough. Yeah, we are working with National Highways regarding severance issues for rights of way. So maybe scope to work with them.
We've got it in time. Okay.
So yeah, we'll chat about that one after this meeting.
That's excellent.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Yeah, well done sorting
Thank
that
you.
out. It's absolutely fantastic. If you like to stop for a tea break, that's fine by me. We'll adjourn until 22. Is that all right? Okay, thank you. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We'll move on to item 7, which is discussion on planning applications. I put this one on the agenda, and I'll tell you the reason. I picked up on an application for the reinstatement of some gravel pits just to the side of Dorchester. Now, I know that the Devon decaf are equivalent. Hilary Winter picks up on some of the applications that go to the main county, and we'll put them up for discussion where rights of way gains can be made. Now, in this instance, I picked up on the application at Woodside Farm, which involved the reinstatement of a public footpath and potentially some additional right-of-way gains there in the future. And I contacted the planning case officer and said, look, in DT2 alone, there were 2,090 horses registered with death-for passports. And we know from evidence that horses are usually stabled near to where they're registered with their owners because the owners want to either ride them or care for them. And when you combine that with the number of incidents on the roads between horses and traffic, which is usually vehicles passing either too fast or too close. In 2020, there were 11 incidents. In 2021, there were 36. In 2022, there were 62 such incidents. And I'm wondering if we can somehow proactively look for these larger scale applications to see if there are wins that we can make. I know that a colleague of mine was looking in the Marnell area to see if some additional bridleways could be created. Unfortunately, it wasn't able to be achievable. But I wonder what the forum's thoughts were and how we could best of our opportunities in this regard. Let's just sort of throw it open. Does anybody in the administrative side check to see if there are any applications that come in that could be suitable for access gains?
Sorry, my hand raising seems to be failing miserably.
Oh, just shout.
So, would you mind if I
shout?
Sorry,
it's raised. I see top left now.
Excuse me. Sorry. I was going to say, shouldn't this all be included in the ROIP somewhere? You know, shouldn't it be part of the strategic something in the ROIP that, you know, concerning rights of way and bridleways? I mean, that's what I thought the ROIP was for.
It absolutely is and will be again. From our point of view, as the senior range of staff that comment on planning applications, obviously we get notified by our planning department of any planning application, big or small, that is within 50 metres of public rights of way. The planning officers are checking on the map. It's one of the items that is ticked or crossed by the applicant as well, whether it is going to affect or create a new right of way, I think wording within it. And then we comment accordingly, obviously about the rights of way that are specifically impacted upon by that development. Obviously all the staff are also looking at any improvements that could be made, any diversions that need to be made to primarily to accommodate the development happening. That is essentially our brief, but also making improvements in the wider area. We've come to an agreement with the planning department that we can submit comments and requests for Section 106 money for development contributions, developments over 20 properties, 20 dwellings. It's just kind of a cut-off on what's, you know, an allowable amount. Is just kind of finger in the wind number. It's not a legal number, but that's what we've arrived at. And it seems to be about fair. And then on the whole, we've been receiving money for right-of-way improvement works on a per dwelling basis as well. So, for example, all the development work in and around Stallbridge in North Dorset have been happening over this past couple of years and future ones. For rights-of-way improvement, North Dorset Railway extension and the nature reserve that we manage there. I've got over £300,000 coming to us for those three areas of work. Obviously, it comes in dribs and drabs, like 50% completion, and then 90% confidence. So we're slowly kind of building up a reserve to be able to do the things that Russ has been doing, obviously, on the maiden beacon trail. Okay, just started this week. It was Monday of this week. I got notified that I've got £40,000 to do rights of way improvement in the Gillingham area. So there is money coming in, and is all over the county for rights of way improvement. But your point about improving right of way network specifically, and with the Monal area, very difficult.
I know. We explored it, didn't happen.
Yeah. But there's no reason why links can't be made. It's just very difficult in some cases. But yeah, absolutely, we do look at how to improve the network within planning application, almost forcing anyway, the developer to do it.
I know the instance with Woodside Farm, no properties involved, just grub extraction and then reinstatement, and it's just giving that opportunity. Look, okay, if you're putting it back, let's see if we can get higher rights. Yeah. Russell, then Paul.
Yeah, so just to say on that, I mean, one part of the work we do as well is around net loss. So when we look at some of these big developments, what we consider to be net loss is where public footpaths or bridleways as part of developments are put over to pavement in footways. So we consider that net loss of our network and the rural network that we try to manage and maintain. So for instance, you'd be looking at First Farm in Bridport, a lot of rights of way there, which are going to be part of the development and be bolted onto different alignments, but effectively will become tarmac pavement. So we worked with that developer in order to put in a circular right of way around the perimeter, which they had to acquire another section of land to connect to implement. So where we can, as Graham said, we absolutely do, and of course with most any of these big projects, housing developments, they will almost always come within the bounds of a right of way. So we're informed. So we don't all. It's unusual that we don't know. Some of the big developments used to go ahead potentially, without this. Went ahead. We weren't aware of it unless we heard it in the news or through other things. With our planning teams letting us know when it comes in, if it's of a right of way, then about the big ones that are in a position where we can assist or request or lobby. We just put our emphasis in to make sure that there is no net loss, but mainly aiming for a net gain.
Yeah.
It's really good to hear the good practice in terms of searching for and picking up local rights of way. To me, the challenge is picking up where you need a right of way and there isn't anything. And obviously, you've created some good ones on occasion. But I'd had great hopes when we did the opportunity mapping for the ROIP. And actually, tomorrow I'm trying to develop a map of where we need rights of way, because that's what you need to be able to look at as well. And I've had a couple of goes in my local village where we have the A352 going through the middle of the rights of way network, which is very good, but completely severed by a road that's quite unattractive to cross during the summer. And so is there perhaps you could update me on the progress of that? Because of all the delays of doing the ROIP, it's actually an opportunity to try and, for all of us, to keep getting people to contribute to an opportunity map there. where we need access, that could also link into the local nature recovery mapping project, which is going to be huge as well, so that farmers and landowners can see where access is needed. And then that would give you perhaps an opportunity to pick up on schemes which would give us links where there's really no link at all at the moment. That we could do.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly difficult for recreational to make. But to some landowners, I mean, the Chile one is a real. It's the one in a million where actually the landowner is still on the board with what we're trying to achieve. But when we go to the recreationals, we have an aspirational list. We have aspirations across the county where we want to link our network. And as we discussed around the Chiddick one, actually we're going to use the UCR network, the D-class road and the unclassified road network. We want to link two rights of way. So wherever we can, we keep searching for these opportunities. But no, you're absolutely right. In a lot of areas, there are aspirations to link crossings, severance from roads network. And, but they are, unfortunately, remain aspirational until something happens within the areas that changes that balance. So a housing development scheme, road update, they want to do whatever to the highway, but might give us an extra section alongside it by which we can then put a right away.
So how do we get onto your aspirational list though? What is the process of doing that? Because we may only need like 200 metres.
Yeah.
Or we might want a mile. But we can't see that list, can we?
I mean, I'm not even sure there is a list.
Well, no, it's not. That's the problem.
By putting something, because now, as I say, there are all these farm clusters forming. There's other mechanisms going on to change the way land managed. Quite a good time to be knocking on people's doors sometimes.
I just bring Gemma in. Gemma did a lot of mapping in the start. Gemma, did you do any of aspirational mapping for where public rights of way were wanted?
Yes, as part of the ROEP, I think there were a few questions in the consultation that went out to the public on sort of what their top ideas for improving access would be. So from the ones that they could either draw on the map or submit a written thing. So the ones that submitted a mapped thing have all been plotted. And yeah, that was passed on with the ROEP. So that does exist somewhere at the minute. How it will be used, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, that does exist.
So thank you, Gemma. So we do have a document from which we can build on and publish, and keep up to date and live. And I think the best way around it, I'd have to take that on forward and have a think of how we show that publicly as an aspirational list, because but whether it's a layer on a Dorset Explorer or whether it's an internal function, but bring take forward, sure. But any other aspirational projects you have, or where you see these links that are needed, contact the senior ranger for the area, and they'll have it down under sort of like project work files as it's needed here, but we have no means to make it, bring it to fruition.
On BHS, we did sit down and have quite a big workshop on putting that data and sending it to Gemma at the start. So I would like to see that that's used, and I'm sure Ramblers and others.
Yeah, well, make sure that it is used in.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Always the worry with opportunity maps is that you upset farmers by making them think somebody's going to put something across. Actually, what you're saying is this would be a nice to have. It's a wetland and access.
Yeah, don't want to set too many hares running. That's
land blight.
Yeah.
Just saying.
But yeah, maybe that gives that landowner the opportunity for a give and take. We'll say, well, actually, this right of way massively interrupts my farming practice. If you have the right of way there at the expense of this one, then you just don't know those opportunities until you ask the question, do you? So, not saying that I want to reduce the network at all, but there might be ones that are just inaccessible for 10 months of the year, and actually on a different alignment, they're better and actually suits the landowner as well. So. And
that's where perhaps looking at the local plan to see where we have upcoming designated sites, and it'll all tie them together.
Yeah. I'm
just going to say in BCP, I'm sure Pip will come in. Pip and Ellen work very closely with the planning team for opportunities, looking at existing rights of way, if there's any changes and opportunities for the future. I think it's sort of specifically in the Canford Magna area, and all the development that's going on through there, and paddock. There's a lot of development going on. I'm sure Pip will come in if there's anything further he wants to add, but it's a very close sort of close working on all developments, and even in Central Bournemouth. Just thinking of the Winter Gardens site within Central Bournemouth, there's a public right of way through there, which Ellen has recently put notices out for changes to that right of way as part of development, and there's been a lot of discussion with the developer to make sure that happens. I don't know if Pip or Ellen want to come in on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, we're fully behind the idea of any kind of planning gain. Usually we'll assess any planning application in terms of can we expand the rights of way network, and we've been actually surprisingly successful with securing at least a couple of really great paths as part of the hotel redevelopments going on down Sandbanks. There's one around the Haven Hotel, which is going to be redeveloped, and the Sandbanks Hotel as well. But also, yes, we were invited by the planning policy team to submit a set of paths, and I drew up sort of a shape file, just laying out some highly aspirational paths with no real respect for how realistic an idea it was to sort of deliver upon them, but sort of a set of nice to haves, which we thought would be sort of strategic. Not that many, actually, because of how sort of densely developed we are as an area. There's only a few sort of open areas where we can sort of fit in new paths, but generally it was enhancing access along the River Stour, and that was the general theme. We passed that along to planning policy. I've yet to chase up on exactly how many of our ideas have sort of been absorbed into their policy work, but yes, that is an opportunity which has been made available to us, and indeed we remain completely open to any ideas really for anybody to submit nice to haves, other paths that they may wish to have. I know that as part of our consultation work for the rights of way improvement plan, that the Castleman Trailway extension was mentioned and very comprehensively detailed. Actually, that'll feature in the next local access forum meeting, because that's going to be held at Upton, and we're gonna go check that out and have a look around as to what sort of potential there is there. But we're fully into it, and maybe you're right. Maybe there is perhaps opportunity there for more sort of information sharing in terms of maps where we want to sort of put new public rights of way. Perhaps we could have that on Dorset Explorer or something. And then, yeah, absolutely, we are open to ideas as to where people may wish to see new public rights of way being installed.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's covered that very nicely. I'll move on to
Going back to your original point about quarrying site. Several years ago, we were consulting on a revision of the mineral and waste sites plan, which is a document that the councils have a statutory duty to maintain, and which in practice DCC was dealt with on a cross-county basis. And one of the comments we made in that was, well, yes, this is an opportunity to at least maintain the access and better improve it. And we were assured that the individual site licenses for quarrying would contain a requirement for a restoration plan. And that restoration plan would have said that at a minimum require existing access to be preserved, to be restored, preferably enhanced. So the levers are there. What we never really got onto is the mechanics of making it happen.
the identification.
Because at that time there weren't any sites closing down. But so in principle, the mineral and waste sites plan does give you those links. I could push out some of the correspondence and copy it if you want. But I say in specific case of quarrying sites, that's probably where you start, rather than just planning applications and so. But I can fish you that out if you want.
Right. Moving on to item number 8. Member feedback from associated groups. I've got the AONB here. Do you want? Well, I was going to do. Well, okay, we'll take it jointly with.
Right. The Dorset AONB. Well, there was big news from all of the AONBs this week, which is that as from the 22nd of November, all the AONBs in England and Wales are being rebranded as national landscapes. It isn't a legal change, but this is how they're going to be referred to from now on. And this was one of the recommendations from the Glover report. So in Dorset, we've now got the Dorset National Landscape and the Cranbourne Chase National Landscape. And the new names reflect, and I'm quoting here, their national importance, the vital contribution they make to protect the nation from the threats of climate change, nature depletion and the world in crisis, whilst also creating greater understanding and awareness of the work that they do. So all of the national landscapes across England and Wales now have unified branding. They've had money from their national association to help with changes to their website and all the other places where their logo appears, but they're not going to change things unnecessarily and spend money on changing every single logo wherever it appears, anywhere that they have anything to do with. They'll do those things gradually. So that's just something to note out for. But also there was actually a meeting of the AONB Partnership Board on Tuesday of this week, which I went along to. Was very interesting, very varied number of contributors there. And they do quite a lot of work which does mesh into what the Local Access Forum does. And they do seem to be able to get money from all kinds of different sources to try and improve access to the countryside and to tell people about access to the countryside. So some of the things which they highlighted this time were they got money from the Section 106 agreement associated with the Witch Farm has been granted an extension for a further 20 years of pumping oil out of the earth. But they got a lot of Section 106 money from that. And one of the things to do with access that they're doing with that money is providing barrel bikes. And I can only think of barrel bikes as something like Boris bikes were in London, that you hire bikes out. Then they've got a big project called Stepping into Nature, which has been working in partnership with various organisations to provide opportunities for older people with long-term health conditions and their carers to get out and enjoy nature. So they've done lots of work to encourage that kind of thing. So they produced some Walk Dorset's history guides, some films on places to visit in Dorset. They got money from Natural England to set up called the Nature Buddies Network, which will be embedding volunteers in organisations to help people to get out into the countryside. They've got money under their Farming in Protected Landscapes heading to help people with disabilities explore and understand the farming environment, and they're taking people out into the countryside under that. And they're doing lots of wellbeing projects for people with long-term health conditions to experience access to nature. Then they've got a whole area of their work is to do with visitor management, and it's about managing the impact of visitors to Dorset AONB, retaining its natural beauty and special qualities while helping people to enjoy it and to understand it and to engage with it. And again, money from lots of different sources there, much of it is to do with providing information. So information boards at Lyme Regis, interpretation plans, signage improvements around Charmouth and so on. So they are able to get into little pots of money, which are encouraging people out into the countryside.
So I also sit on the local nature partnership for the LAF, and sort of things that are going on because the AONB or is actually part of the local nature partnership. Again, there's a lot of talk about the mental health and well-being side of getting people out. So there's some commonality with the access. They need our access to the countryside. However, there's also the climate change agenda, which overlaps to some degree with us because they're considering travel in that. So a lot of work on the climate change agenda and trying to reduce the impact on climate change by having more sustainable travel. Now, the local nature partnership attended the Dorset COP, which was held recently, and are planning to sign a declaration. I don't know if any of you have seen the Dorset COP, but basically a statement that how Dorset wants to contribute to climate change. I don't think they'll be involved, but its members may well have been. The Stour Valley Park, I noticed, has just launched its own website. So if you haven't come across that, that should include the access side of that project, which we've had a lot of discussion on here. But the other thing I had been reflecting on, looking at some of the issues that were coming up at today's talk and the local nature partnership, is that there is this large move to and more funding through ELMS to go do really large landscape scale projects, and these will affect rivers greatly, therefore potentially affect. We really need to jointly think about how that funding is going forward. This is part of the government's nature recovery strategy, and the councils are currently writing those for Dorset. Get more than them at all, but I think they've only been discussing really how they're going to do it. But there's so much work already being done by the local nature partnership in terms of mapping where partners will see the opportunities in the future. I think it'd be quite an easy step forward. Dorset's very joined up sort of county in terms of the information that's shared. They have been for many years. So the Dorset local nature recovery strategy will be written by the council and will include mapping for all places where landscape will need to change. Yet no timescale on how they're doing against this market. We've got another meeting in about a week's time, I think. So if there's anything you'd like me to take back to them in terms of messages about access, that'd be worth raising the fact that it needs to be considered in all of these.
It mentions the Cranbourne Chase ANLB. And years ago, we had a lady, Jodie Hobson, who lived North Dorset, and she talked to them on our behalf. And then, for a year or two, I think Lee Hardy said he was involved. But as of today, do we actually have a designated link into the Cranbourne Chase ANLB?
No, I don't think we do. And that was actually something I was going to raise under any other business, was that for some reason I seem to be on their mailing list. But I mean, I'm not in any official capacity, but we have received an invitation from them to attend an annual planning and transportation seminar on Tuesday, the 5th of December. But it's in Shaftesbury, so I couldn't get to it. But I was going to mention it under AONB if anybody else was interested in attending. So no, but I'm not sure that we've got anybody on our current membership who lives in North Dorset. But shout if you do.
I'm going to make a point. At 2 o'clock, I meet with the Police and Crime Commission of Dorset, being sit with. Dorset is different to Avon and Somerset because in Avon and Somerset, Police and Crime Commissioner Mark Shelford is a deputy. David Sidwick doesn't have. And the deputy is Claire Hiscott. And the point I want to make is that Avon and Somerset Police Crime Commission has brought out a brilliant leaflet about the impact on farmers, because clearly we live in a farmer-influenced environment. Farmers crucial for the production of our food, and the amount of stress that's caused by dogs killing sheep, worrying animals, etc. And I do sometimes wonder if this group would benefit from having the attendance of the Police and Crime Commission for Dorset. And I say this quite passionately because though I am the Dorset councillor for Marshall Vale, I was previously a district councillor for what was the Chiddock and Symonsbury ward, which included a greater stretch of coastline in and around Eve. And I'm hugely conscious that Dean Exton, who died recently, he was a tenant farmer at the National Trust. The amount of stress that he had as a result of people not controlling their dogs at Danhouse Farm. And I think perhaps Avon and Somerset Police and Crime Commission has perhaps stolen a march on Dorset. And this issue needs to be addressed. And clearly, where we all engage with farmers, we need to be talking positively to farmers about responsible access. But that's a bit of a political run, but it comes from the heart.
I sit on the Devon Police and Crime, Devon Police and Crime, and in my role as a district councillor, I'm also aware, as leading into the health and well-being, the very high suicide rate in the farming industry. So there is a tie-in there. Just very briefly round the table, do we as a forum think it would be a good idea? I'm just taking a straw poll. You don't have to make a statement, but how would we all feel about it?
I'm not sure whether he would want to come to every single meeting.
No,
attending one and giving us a little chat.
That seems to me that it is important that we're informed on the negative effects of access. Mm-hmm. And one of them, and I read that recently about, is theft. Rural theft is huge, and access can promote their opportunity to get a van in and whatever. And stealing sheep and living on the side of the roads and all that sort of stuff. Let's go on. Luckily, not so much down here, but certainly. And dogs. So maybe a one-off thought or presentation would be helpful.
Yeah. I mean, in where I live, which is over to the east of Dorchester, I think possibly it's subsided slightly now, but there was a huge issue with what was described as poaching, but really wasn't poaching. It was, I'm sure the rangers know about this, it was people going onto land in vehicles with dogs, chasing deer and hares, and quite often using the entrance to public rights of way to access the land, and quite horrible. And I don't really call it poaching, because it's not the traditional idea of a poacher at all. But then some tension arose because the land managers were putting up barriers which at one point actually prevented horse access, and so that there had to be some discussions to make sure that the access didn't let through these Land Rovers and so on that were being used for the bad practices, and still allowed the horses in. So there's all kinds of issues.
We get it all the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately.
But invitations, one-off to a meeting. I know we're considering going up to Country Park next time, but we'll just see if the diaries can combine.
Okay, can we get back to Cranbourne Chase at some point?
By me.
Well, if we
well, I mean, Chris is the northest point we have in our membership, I think. I mean, basically, we just need to have somebody with a name on their mailing list, so that we know what the Cranbourne Chase group are doing and have an opportunity to input to it if we think it's relevant. They really just need to be a name on a mailing list in the short term.
Got my patch.
That's mine, but
I don't know where they. I mean, this seminar that we're invited to is in Shaftesbury, but whether that's where they meet regularly, I don't know.
Generally, our meetings are at Tinkley Bottom in Torwold Road.
Hi. Hi.
Yes.
At the moment, as you know, I'm recovering from surgery, so I'm not going very far at all. I'm about to have my stitches out. But once I've recovered, then maybe I can consider going to the Cranbourne Chase A&B meetings. I mean, I'm not that far. I sit on the edge of Cranbourne Chase, for goodness sake, in Wimborne. So, you know, it's...
I've got contacts with them. There was a decent portion of my north area is within it. Would you like me to make an introduction or a reintroduction?
Please. Thank you, Graham. Okay. Right.
Copy and Nicky as well.
Can I say something about dogs as well, please?
Please do.
I mean, you know, it's a problem that's been going on for years, hasn't it? And you know, I mean, I spent all my time when I was working on Access and Recreation Natural England. A lot of it was spent on problems with irresponsible dog ownership, and indeed, we can all give horrific examples. And I mean, I've nothing against the Police and Crime Commission coming along and giving a talk, but the question is, what can we as the LAF do? I mean, you know, I would encourage, obviously, as much dissemination of information as the council can probably do, and the use of the Countryside Code. And I know that was relaunched last year, you know, but so it's those things. But, you know, it's what decisions can we take that will help. And I'm not sure that's what I'm seeing at the moment. You know, I recognise there's a problem, and I recognise that we should have more information, and I recognise there should be more education. But it's a national problem, and so am I being very negative here? I'm very sorry if I am. But I've certainly nothing against the Police and Crime Commissioner attending meetings to if there's anything that can be done.
Yeah, just a one-off invite. Okay. Yeah. Right. Okie doke. If you can sort of put that on the action list, please, Gemma. We'll move on to item number 9, which is any other business, the date of the next meeting. Now, I know you've got some items you want to bring up.
Yeah.
Janet.
Well, the first one was Gemma forwarded to us a consultation from Forestry Commission or similar, and I personally could not make head nor tail of what they were asking us about. And so the first question is, did anybody else understand it, and can you explain to me what it is they're consulting us about? And if we can decide what it is they're consulting us about, we need to think of our response. But can anybody help?
It was rather woolly, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I couldn't find my way in to whatever it was
Well,
was there.
if nobody knows what it was about, I'm willing to reply to the message and say, please, can you explain to us what it is you're asking us about? And if I get a reply, I will circulate it and we can take it forward from there.
Thank you. Right.
Oh, and well, related to that, I after Gemma sent that to us, I did a reply to everybody when I said exactly what I've said then, that I couldn't understand what was happening. And this has happened before. Every time I reply to all on an email that I've had from the group or to the group, Dawn Raymond's address bounces back as undelivered. And I don't know if anybody else has had the same. So can we check on Dawn Raymond's email address? Perhaps it's only me. No one else is getting the same thing. Or can, Gemma, can you tell me what it is so that I can make sure that it's right in my system?
I don't think it's you, Janet. I've been having the same problem, and Paul also emailed me about that as well. I wondered if, excuse me, if Dawn perhaps wasn't in her role anymore, but I'm not aware of that. I wasn't informed of any changes.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, you're sick of hearing from me. This is the last thing I'm going to say, really. I would like to draw everyone's attention to a report which was produced by the Ramblers. They commissioned it from the New Economics Foundation, and the object of it was to improve understanding of the neighbourhood level availability of paths and the critical infrastructure of nature access. And the result of this was a two-part report, which makes some quite interesting reading, particularly since Dorset was one of the councils which was part of their case study and being contrasted with Devon. So what I will do is I will send to Gemma the link to the Ramblers website so that everybody can read it. And I would urge you to look at it because it makes very interesting reading. It's basically all about equality and the issue of, you know, who can actually access the public rights of way network.
That's it. Okay. Date of the next meet. Sorry, Paul, you want to come in?
Linking the two, the ELMS might, I think, be an agenda item for our next meeting. Years ago, when the Gold was Secretary of State, splendid words were spoken about using the replacement of the CAP to fund public goods, in terms, including, but specifically including public access. And we were assured, yes, the ELMS would do this. The reality is, it does. On the several rounds of correspondence with the Secretary of State on this, and his reply was been drafted by some head in white or who were just parroting out standard text and so on. And their idea of access, where you have to get down to brass tacks, it's providing funding for school visits to bar. You know, it's that. So essentially, what Michael Gove was promising us, as far as I can see, just hasn't been delivered.
No.
Thinking about it, it's a couple of years now since we last heard a swore about the LMS.
Yeah. My recollection was that it was public money for public good, and we assumed that it would be access.
Sorry.
But there were several trials that came about.
Yes.
Certainly, it was originally stated public access.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. It was more than a presumption. It was definite, you know, that public access was going to be in there. It's clear from the Act. Lots of work was done within DEFRA and Natural England, and then it was dropped when George Eustace became the Secretary of State, and it was visibly missing from the transition document, which is what spurred us to begin that correspondence when the transition document came out. But it was most definitely there, and it was being worked up in those first few years. So it was more than a presumption. But
I did follow this up after our discussion last time with the officers that are delivering, mostly with the government. And basically it said 2024 will start looking.
So next year.
Yeah. Because it's being rolled out very gradually. And it wasn't a priority. It has come in AONBs, farming protected landscape. There are schemes in Dorset involved.
And there's some in Somerset that are being
nowhere
trialled.
outside of the.
There are some in Somerset being trialled in the area of Cheddar.
Yeah. Well, I can follow that up again.
Okay. Thank you.
One final point before I go. If we go back where we are with elms, and we go back to where we were with subsidies, we ended up with decoupling. We ended up with decoupling from animal production through to area-based payments, and we've now gone from area-based payments towards elms and sustainable farming incentives. So it's not a case that farmers actually receive money in the future from the acres of land that they have. More acres equals more money. Farmers will have to actually invest in a sustainable way, either recovery or the sustainable farming incentive, to actually receive subsidies. So the world is totally changing. And having my ears to the ground, there are wonderful things that are going on. There was mention of George Eustace. George Eustace was a big supporter of a group called Benjamin in Cornwall, which was a pioneer in turning cattle slurry into biofuel. And I've been talking about this for the last 18 months at parish council meetings, and people are interested. And what's happening now is that the National Trust are on board with Benjamin, etc., where their tenant farmers are actually having slurry turned into biofuel, and the National Trust are on board with this. In the same way, the National Trust are involved with their tenant farmers in encouraging them to literally spend £7,000-8,000 on wild flower seeds that we will see in West Dorset when we walk through local footpaths. So there is tremendous work going on as a consequence of the government's action since 2010. And similar with farmers getting grants for covering farmyards and dealing with the silage and slurry legislation that came in 2010. So the government really has been quite remarkable and perhaps doesn't get the credit it deserves. Thank you very much.
Right. Date of the next meeting, and we have a proposal to have it at Buxton Country Park. Is it better to find out the availability of the venue and circulate?
We've been looking into it. Ellen's been looking at
I didn't know the day, so I didn't say, are you available on such date, but they've given a list of the rooms available, and but because we didn't know the day, we didn't check whether.
Okay, not solely if you want to come our way, obviously, because we're part of this Dorset Local Access Forum.
We'd love to
just feel that if you'd like to come that way, I know more people perhaps are this way. I live this way myself, but it's been useful. We'd like to work a date so that our portfolio holder, Andy Hadley, is available as well, and we can do a few presentations around BCP type things. I mean, what Simon Christopher was talking about there is the juxtaposition that you've got. We're the 10th biggest urban authority in the country. We have sort of like talking about crime commissioner. We have problems around drug dealing, antisocial behaviour on footpaths, not around dogs and farms and things. So it's a totally different thing. But it'd be useful to have at some point in the future the crime commissioner. But we have different problems, of course. But We'd love to have you.
It'd be good to move around.
Yeah.
Because we are enjoying that. Are we looking, what should we say, March, April time?
You can put that. Yeah. That's acceptable.
That's
We can do the
great.
technology as well. We can do the technology with the meeting,
Yeah.
you know, so the Teams meeting.
So March, April.
Just need the date to check.
We'll start.
Okay.
Liaise with Gemma, I
I'll
guess.
have a word with Gemma offline and our team here with Russell and Graham.
I think the idea was as well, when the meeting finishes, working with Graham perhaps, because it's right on the border, is going to have a walk or something like that. Look at the castle and trailways Pip mentioned earlier. Go and have a, after the meeting, go and have a walk and look at some rights away in the area to see some of the things that are going on or potentially going on. Just look out there. So
I'll bring my dog.
bring your dog.
When we're going sort of March, April, we're getting lighter
Yeah, exactly.
day and hopefully warmer.
Be nice and spring and spring in the
Bit of spring in the air.
yeah.
Okay, right. We'll look at that and we sort out the dates and I'll do the poll work from there. So at 12:35, I declare the meeting closed. And thank